My daughter's husband thought I was just an old fool. The kind of old man people smile at, but secretly think is clueless. You know the type. Grey hair. Slow walk. Quiet voice. Easy target. At least, that's what he believed. But that night, the night he opened my drawer, his face turned white first, then yellow, like someone had just drained the blood out of him and replaced it with fear. And the funny part? I was lying right there in the dark, watching everything, and I smiled. But trust me, we'll get to that part soon, because the story really started a few weeks earlier. And man, the warning signs were already there. I just didn't realize how ugly things were about to get. So before we go further, take a second and subscribe to the channel. And drop a comment telling me where you're listening from. Because stories like this, they deserve an audience. And trust me, you're gonna want to hear what happened next. It started at dinner one evening. Nothing special. Just the three of us sitting at the table. My daughter, her husband, and me. We were eating quietly, talking about normal everyday stuff. Weather, groceries, neighborhood gossip. The usual. Then suddenly, his voice cut through the room. "So, that's safe upstairs," he said. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. I slowly looked up. "What about it?" He leaned back in his chair like he was asking about the weather. "What kind of lock does it have?" The question just hung there in the air, like smoke that wouldn't clear. My daughter almost choked on her water. What kind of question is that? But he didn't look at her. His eyes stayed locked on me, waiting, studying my face, like a hunter watching prey. And man, that's when my chest got tight, because something about his expression felt wrong, real wrong. I placed my fork down slowly, buying myself a second to think. "Just curious," he said quickly, that fake smile spreading across his face. "You know, with all the break-ins lately." "Break-ins?" I frowned. "What break-ins?" I had lived in this neighborhood for 15 years. The biggest drama we'd had recently was a cat getting stuck in a tree. Seriously. That's it. But he waved his hand like it was nothing. "Oh, you probably don't hear about them." He leaned forward, elbows on my table. "My point is, a man your age living alone in a house this big." He paused. "You must have some serious security." My daughter shifted uncomfortably. "Dad always locks everything." But he wasn't done. Not even close. "What about insurance?" he asked, his tone getting a little sharper. "I mean, if something happened to you, God forbid." He glanced at my daughter. She'd need to know where everything is kept. The room suddenly felt smaller, way smaller, and I watched him carefully, because little details started jumping out at me. His pupils widened when he mentioned my death. His fingers tapped the table when I didn't answer right away. Tiny signs, but signs nonetheless. Finally, I said calmly, "Everything is organized. My daughter knows what she needs to know." But then he said something that made my stomach drop. "But does she know about the key?" "The key?" My daughter blinked. "What key?" His smile widened. "The one in the drawer upstairs." Silence. Pure silence. Then I spoke slowly. "How do you know about a key in my bedroom?" For a split second, his mask slipped. I saw something cold behind his eyes. Something calculating. Then just like that, the friendly son-in-law expression came back. "Oh, last week I had a terrible headache." He shrugged casually. "I went upstairs looking for aspirin." My daughter nodded. "Oh yeah, I remember that." But I remembered that day too, and something about it always bothered me. He had gone upstairs claiming stomach issues. Stayed up there almost 30 minutes. 30 minutes to look for aspirin? Yeah, right. The aspirin had always been in the bathroom cabinet. Exactly where it always was. Still, dinner continued. But now he kept asking questions. More questions. About my bank. About who had keys to the house. About my daily routine. Each question felt like someone poking a bruise. Testing where it hurt. Testing where I was weak. Finally, dinner ended. My daughter jumped up quickly. "I'll clean up tonight." But I shook my head. Don't worry about it. Washing dishes had always been my thinking time. And tonight, boy, did I need to think. They went upstairs shortly after. I heard their bedroom door close, and I stood there alone in the kitchen, washing plates, rinsing glasses, drying them slowly. But my mind kept replaying his questions, over and over. The safe, the key, my money, my routine. Something wasn't adding up, not even close. When the last dish was done, the kitchen looked perfect again. Clean, quiet, peaceful. But the house didn't feel peaceful anymore. Not at all. It felt exposed, like someone had opened a window and let danger in. Upstairs, everything was silent. But I had a feeling. Something wasn't right. And man, I had no idea how right that feeling was. Because when I climbed those stairs, the first thing I saw made my heart skip a beat. My bedroom door was open, just a few inches. But that was enough. Because I always closed it. Always. Old habits from living alone for decades. I stood there on the top step, hand gripping the railing, listening, waiting. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Finally, I pushed the door open slowly and stepped inside. At first glance, everything looked normal. Bed made, lamp in place, glasses on the nightstand. But when you live alone long enough, you notice tiny details. And those details were screaming at me. The closet door was slightly open. 4 inches. I never left it open. My dresser drawers weren't sitting flush anymore. One of them had been pushed in carelessly, and a corner of a folder was sticking out. My stomach twisted. Someone had been here. Someone had gone through my things. And there was only one person in the house who didn't belong here. I opened the drawer. Folders had been moved, papers shuffled, and the small brass key I kept taped under the drawer was gone, completely gone. I checked twice, then a third time. Nothing. And that's when the anger hit me. Hot, sharp, real sharp. This wasn't random. Someone knew exactly what they were looking for. Someone had searched carefully. Someone had planned this. And that someone was sleeping down the hall with my daughter. But the worst part? He thought I wouldn't notice. He thought I was just a clueless old man. But he made one huge mistake. One very big mistake. He underestimated me. And that was about to cost him. Because right then, standing in my bedroom, I made a decision. I wouldn't confront him. Not yet. No. I was going to let him keep going. Let him think he was winning. Let him believe the old man was clueless. Because sometimes, the best way to catch a thief is to let him steal. And trust me, what happened next was something he never saw coming. That night, sleep didn't come easy. Actually, scratch that. Sleep didn't come at all. I was lying in bed staring at the ceiling like some old detective in a movie. Thinking, replaying everything. Every question he asked. Every weird look. Every little moment that felt off. And man, the more I thought about it, the worse it got. Because once you start noticing the red flags, you suddenly see a whole parade of them. His lost job story. The constant phone calls he took outside. The way he studied my house like he was memorizing it. Yeah, it was starting to make a lot more sense now. But I still didn't know the full picture. Not yet. And that's when something happened that made the whole thing crystal clear. At exactly 11:47 p.m., I heard footsteps downstairs. Soft ones. Careful ones. Not my daughter's. No. These were heavier. Slow. Deliberate. My eyes opened instantly. I didn't move. Not even an inch. The footsteps crossed the living room floor. Then stopped. A few seconds passed. And then, I heard his voice. Very quiet. Almost a whisper. Yeah, it's me. My heart started pounding. Because he was on the phone. At midnight. Trying not to be heard. Everyone's asleep, he said. That sentence alone told me everything I needed to know. But what he said next, that hit me like a brick. The old man is definitely loaded. Loaded. Yeah. That's the word he used. My blood went cold. I found bank statements, investments, the whole deal, he continued. We are talking serious money. We are talking. Not just him. There was someone else involved. Great. Just great. Now this wasn't just some desperate son-in-law. Now we had partners in crime. I slowly slid out of bed. Quiet as possible. Bare feet touching the cold floor. Step by step I moved toward the air vent in the corner of my room. Old houses have funny acoustics. Sometimes sound travels through the ducts. And lucky for me, tonight it did. His voice came through clearer. Tomorrow night, he whispered. That's the perfect time. Tomorrow night. My stomach tightened. Every Tuesday she goes to that book club thing, he said. 7 to 9. My daughter. He was talking about my daughter. She'll be gone, and the old man takes sleeping pills. I grabbed my phone instantly, opened the voice recorder, and hit record. Because when someone starts confessing, you let them talk. I already have the key, he continued. Grabbed it earlier while they were having dinner. The key. So it was him. Just like I suspected. The safe is upstairs, he went on. Cash, jewelry, probably documents too. Documents. Of course. To a guy drowning in debt. Paper is just money waiting to be cashed. Then he said something that made my jaw clench. He's just some lonely old widower. Lonely old widower. That's what he thought I was. Probably grateful we are here, he added. He won't suspect a thing. I felt the anger rising. Hot and heavy. But I stayed quiet. Because the more he talked, the deeper he buried himself. Then came the real bombshell. My gambling debts aren't going away, he said. Bingo. There it was. The truth. Gambling. I owe too much, and those guys aren't patient. I swallowed hard. Because when gamblers say those guys, they usually don't mean friendly people. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about desperation. The dangerous kind. And desperate people do desperate things. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. You know the best part, he said. Even if the old guy notices something missing. My wife will convince him he misplaced it. My hands tightened around the phone. My wife. My daughter. He was planning to use her. Use her love. Use her trust. As cover. And that right there, was the moment I stopped feeling angry. Because anger fades. But betrayal? That sticks. He kept talking. We'll be gone by Thursday, he said. I'll tell her I got a job offer in another state. Job offer. Nice little lie. Clean. Simple. We'll disappear before the old man figures it out. He paused, listening to whoever was on the other end. Then he chuckled again. Honestly, the guy should have been more careful about who he let into his house. Life lesson. Life lesson. Yeah. He called robbing me a life lesson. The call ended a few seconds later. Footsteps moved again. Slow. Careful. Heading toward the stairs. I stopped the recording and slid back into bed. Just in time. A shadow passed by my bedroom door. He stood there for a second. Listening. Making sure I was asleep. Then he continued down the hallway. A door closed softly. Silence returned. And I lay there staring into the dark. Processing everything. He had gambling debts. A partner. A plan. And a deadline. Tomorrow night. That's when he was going to rob me. But here's the funny thing about criminals. They always think they're the smartest person in the room. And that guy. He thought he had the perfect plan. He thought I was clueless. He thought I was helpless. But there was one thing he didn't know. For 30 years, I worked as an insurance investigator. You know what that means? It means I spent 3 decades catching liars, fraudsters, con artists, people who thought they were clever, people just like him. So when he said I was just a lonely old fool, I almost laughed, because he had no idea who he was dealing with. And lying there in the dark, with his recorded confession sitting on my phone, I made another decision. I wasn't calling the police yet. No. That would be too easy. Too quick. Instead, I was going to let him try. Let him walk right into my bedroom. Let him reach into that drawer. Let him think he'd won. And then I was going to show him something he'd never forget. Because if he wanted to play games with an old man, well, this old man knew a few tricks too. And trust me, the trap I was about to set was going to be absolutely beautiful. But what happened the next morning? Oh man, that's when things got even more interesting. Morning came faster than I expected. I didn't sleep. Not really. Maybe I drifted off for 10 minutes here and there. But mostly I just lay there thinking. Thinking about that phone call. Thinking about my daughter. Thinking about the man sleeping down the hall who planned to rob me. Funny thing about nights like that, they change how you see everything. By the time the sun came up, I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. Very focused. Because when someone plans to steal from you, you have two choices. You panic, or you prepare. And I've never been the panicking type. So at 6:30 a.m., just like every other day, I got out of bed, started the coffee maker, and began making breakfast. Eggs, toast, orange juice. Same routine, same calm pace. If anyone was watching me, they'd think nothing was wrong. But inside my brain was working overtime. Every move had to be perfect. Because tonight, he was going to make his move. And I was going to be ready. A few minutes later, my daughter walked into the kitchen. Still half asleep. Hair messy. Wearing her robe. "Morning," she mumbled. "Morning, kiddo," I said. She poured herself some coffee and smiled. "Thanks again for letting us stay here." That sentence hit me harder than she realized. Because she had no idea. No clue what her husband had planned. And honestly, that hurt more than the betrayal. Because she trusted him. Completely. Then footsteps came down the stairs. Slow. Heavy. And there he was. Her husband. The man who planned to rob me. Walking into my kitchen like nothing was wrong. "Morning," he said casually. Like he hadn't spent the night plotting a crime. He sat down at the table and grabbed a cup of coffee. "Beautiful morning," he said. Then he asked the question I expected. "So, what's everyone doing today?" I placed his coffee in front of him slowly. "Oh, the usual. Maybe run a few errands." His eyes sharpened. "What kind of errands?" "See? That right there. That's the kind of question someone asks when they're checking if the house will be empty." "Nothing special," I said. "Maybe the hardware store." "And the bank." The word bank did something interesting. A tiny twitch appeared near his eye. Just for a second. But I noticed. "Oh," he said. "Everything okay financially?" My daughter laughed. "My dad checks his accounts like 5 times a week." I shrugged. Old habits. But then he leaned forward slightly and asked another question. "So, that's safe upstairs?" "Here we go again. What about it?" I said calmly. He stirred his coffee slowly. "You keep important stuff there, right? Documents, money, things like that." My daughter rolled her eyes. "Why are you asking about the safe again?" But he kept his attention on me. Waiting. Measuring my reaction. I took a sip of coffee. Then said something that made his shoulders relax. "Honestly, I keep most things there." I paused. Then added something very important. "But I sleep like a rock these days." He looked up. Interested. "Oh yeah." "Yeah," I said. "Doctor gave me sleeping pills last month. Knock me out completely." Dead silence for a second. Then he smiled. A little too quickly. "That's good. You need your rest." Yeah. He liked that information a lot. And I knew exactly why. Because if I was knocked out tonight, then his job would be easy. Or at least, that's what he thought. Breakfast ended shortly after that. My daughter started cleaning dishes. He grabbed his phone and walked outside. Probably calling the same person from last night. Updating them. Confirming the plan. Perfect. That gave me my window. "I'm gonna run those errands," I announced. "Need anything from the store?" My daughter shook her head. but he stepped back inside right then. "I might go out later," he said casually. "Make some job calls." Job calls. Yeah, sure. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. And as I pulled out of the driveway, I glanced at the house. Guess what I saw? Him, standing at the upstairs window, looking down at my car leaving, watching, making sure the old man was gone. And man, if he thought I was clueless before, he definitely thought it now. But here's the thing. He had no idea where I was really going, because the first stop wasn't the bank. Nope. It was the hardware store. And what I bought there, well, let's just say, it was going to turn his little robbery into a night he'd never forget. But the real magic of the plan, that came when I got home. Because setting the trap, oh man, that was the fun part. And trust me, what happened when he opened that drawer later that night? Well, let's just say, he walked into my room like a thief, and left looking like a walking disco ball. But I'm getting ahead of myself, because the trap still needed to be built. And that part was brilliant. The hardware store smelled like sawdust and old paint. You know that smell. Kind of comforting. Kind of nostalgic. Normally I'd walk in, grab what I needed, and head out. But that morning, I took my time, because the plan forming in my head needed the right pieces. And when you're building a trap, details matter. A lot. I grabbed a small basket and started walking through the aisle slowly. First stop? Fishing line. Thin. Clear. Almost invisible. Perfect. Then I picked up a small spring-loaded clamp. Not too big, but strong enough to snap open fast. Real fast. Next came something that made me grin a little. A giant container of glitter. Bright silver glitter. The kind that sticks to everything. Clothes. Skin. Hair. Car seats. Everything. You ever tried cleaning glitter? Yeah. Good luck with that. Once it's on you, you're basically a walking disco ball for a week. Exactly what I needed. But I wasn't done yet. I grabbed a tiny motion sensor camera too. Nothing fancy. Just one of those little security cameras people stick near their doors. Cheap. Simple. Effective. And very useful when someone is about to break into your bedroom. As I walked toward the checkout counter, I realized something. I was smiling. Actually smiling. Because for the first time since hearing that phone call, I felt calm. Not scared. Not angry. Just calm. Because when you have a plan, fear disappears. The cashier rang up my items. Fishing line. Clamp. Glitter. Camera. He looked at the basket and chuckled. Looks like an interesting project. I smiled back. Oh, it will be. Then I paid and headed back home. The drive gave me time to think through the setup. Every step. Every movement. Everything had to look normal. Because if that guy noticed anything strange, he might back off. And I needed him confident. Very confident. By the time I pulled into the driveway, my daughter's car was gone. Good. Book club prep probably. Or errands. But his car was still there, which meant he was inside. Perfect. I walked in through the front door like usual. Keys jingling. Shoes scraping the floor. Making sure he heard me. And sure enough, he came down the stairs a few seconds later. Hey, he said. You're back early. I held up the hardware bag casually. Just needed a few things. He glanced inside the bag. Curious. Working on something. Just fixing a drawer upstairs. His eyes flickered for a split second. A drawer upstairs. Yeah. That got his attention. Mind if I see? He asked. I shrugged. Nothing exciting. But guess what? He didn't follow me. He stayed downstairs, pretending to scroll through his phone. But I could feel it. That curiosity. That tension. He wanted to know if I'd noticed anything missing. If the key was gone. If the old man had figured things out. But I walked upstairs calmly, closed my bedroom door, and got to work. First, the camera. I placed it on top of a bookshelf facing the dresser. Perfect angle. Anyone opening the drawer would be right in the frame. Next, the fishing line. thin enough to be invisible in low light. I tied one end to the back of the drawer handle, then ran it through a small hook inside the drawer, then attached it to the clamp. And the clamp? That held a plastic container filled with glitter. Lots of glitter. A ridiculous amount of glitter. Silver. Shiny. Impossible to hide. Now here's the clever part. When the drawer opened, the fishing line would pull the clamp loose. The container would flip. And boom. A glitter explosion. Right into the thief's face. Hair. Shirt. Pants. Everywhere. And trust me, there is no quiet way to react when glitter explodes on you. People cough. Sneeze. Yell. It's basically instant chaos. Exactly what I wanted. Then I placed something very important inside the drawer. A fake envelope. Inside it, stacks of newspaper cut to the size of money. From a distance it looked like cash. A lot of cash. But up close? Worthless. Because the real valuables? Those were already moved to the bank that morning. Safe and sound. The last thing I did was place the drawer almost completely shut. Just slightly open. Maybe half an inch. Enough to tempt him. Enough to make him curious. Then I stepped back and looked at the setup. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. I checked the camera feed on my phone. Clear view. Good lighting. Everything ready. Now all I had to do was wait. I walked downstairs calmly. And there he was. Still on the couch. Still pretending to scroll through his phone. But the second he saw me, he asked the question, "Everything okay upstairs?" I nodded. Just a sticky drawer. Fix now. He relaxed. Just a little. Good, he said. Then he stood up and stretched. I might head out for a bit. Make some calls. There it was again. Those job calls. Funny how job calls always happen right before someone plans a robbery. He grabbed his keys and walked toward the door. But before leaving, he glanced up the staircase. Just for a second. Measuring. Planning. Calculating. Then he smiled. See you later. And just like that, he left. The house went quiet again. I sat down in my chair slowly. Phone in my hand. Watching the camera feed. The empty bedroom. The half-open drawer. The glitter trap waiting patiently. Tonight. That's when he'd make his move. Tonight he'd sneak into my room thinking he was about to get rich. But instead, he was about to become the most sparkly criminal this town had ever seen. And honestly, I almost felt bad for him. Almost. Because the moment that drawer opened, his whole plan would fall apart. And when it did, well, let's just say, the next few minutes were going to be unforgettable. But what happened when midnight finally arrived? Oh man, that part was even crazier than I expected. And trust me, you're not going to believe how loud that glitter explosion was. The rest of the day moved painfully slow. You ever have one of those days where the clock just refuses to move? Yeah, that kind of day. I kept myself busy. Watched some TV. Read the newspaper. Made dinner. But honestly, my mind wasn't on any of that. It was on the camera feed on my phone. Every few minutes I'd glance at it. The bedroom. The dresser. The half-open drawer. The glitter trap sitting there quietly. Waiting. And man, I almost felt nervous. Not scared. Just that strange tension you feel before something big happens. Around 6 in the evening, my daughter came downstairs dressed up. Nice sweater. Hair done. Purse in her hand. Book club tonight, she said. Don't stay up waiting for me. I smiled. Wouldn't dream of it. She kissed my cheek and grabbed her keys. Then she called upstairs. Hey, I'm leaving. A few seconds later he came down. Her husband. The man who thought he was about to rob me. You'll be gone a couple hours, he asked her. She nodded. Probably. He smiled. Drive safe. That smile looked normal to her. But to me, it looked like someone trying to hide excitement. Because he knew what tonight was. Tonight was payday. Or at least, that's what he believed. A minute later her car pulled out of the driveway. The house went quiet again. Then he turned toward me. You taking your pills tonight? he asked casually. Oh yeah. He was checking, making sure the old man would be knocked out. I nodded slowly. Already did. That wasn't true, of course. But he didn't know that. He smiled again. Good. Then he headed upstairs, probably waiting for the right moment, waiting until he thought I was asleep. So I played along. Around 10, I turned off the living room lights, yawned loudly, and walked upstairs. Night, I said. Night, he replied from his room. I stepped into my bedroom, closed the door, and turned off the light. But I didn't sleep. Not even close. Instead, I sat in a chair near the corner, phone in my hand, watching the camera fade. Minutes passed. Slow ones. Then an hour. Still nothing. But right around midnight, the hallway creaked. Soft footsteps. Very soft. And there he was. The camera caught the door opening slowly. Just a few inches. Then more. A shadow slipped inside. He paused near the door, listening, making sure I was asleep. Then he moved toward the dresser. Slow. Careful. Like a burglar in a movie. Honestly, if the situation wasn't so serious, it would have been funny. He reached the drawer, the one that was slightly open. His hand moved forward. And that's when it happened. The drawer slid open. The fishing line pulled tight. The clamp snapped loose. And boom. A cloud of glitter exploded into the air. A massive burst of silver dust shot straight into his face. His reaction. Absolutely priceless. What the? He jumped back coughing. Glitter flying everywhere. Hair. Shirt. Pants. Face. Even his eyebrows were sparkling. And the best part? Glitter doesn't fall quietly. It spreads. Everywhere. He tried wiping his face. Bad idea. That just smeared it more. Now his hands were covered too. And that's when I turned on the light. He froze. Standing there in my bedroom. Covered head to toe in glitter. Looking like a confused disco ball. Our eyes met. And I smiled. Looking for something? I asked calmly. His mouth opened. But nothing came out. He glanced at the drawer. Then back at me. Then the reality hit him. Hard. You knew, he stammered. I held up my phone. The camera recording. The voice recording from last night. Everything. Insurance investigator, I said. 30 years. Silence filled the room. He looked defeated. Completely defeated. I was desperate, he muttered. Gambling debts. I know, I said. I heard the phone call. That's when his shoulders dropped. Because he realized something. The game was over. A few minutes later, the police arrived. Turns out, when someone breaks into a bedroom and gets caught on camera, there's not much explaining to do. They took him away that night, still covered in glitter. And honestly, the officer had to try really hard not to laugh. The next day, my daughter came home. And yeah, that conversation was painful. Real painful. But the truth matters. Even when it hurts. She cried. A lot. But eventually she understood. Because lies fall apart when the evidence is staring you in the face. Weeks passed after that. The house felt quiet again. Peaceful. Like it used to be. And sometimes I think about that night. The glitter explosion. The shocked look on his face. The moment his perfect plan collapsed. Funny thing is, he thought he was robbing a helpless old man. But he forgot one important rule. Never underestimate someone just because they're quiet. Because sometimes, the quiet ones see everything. And when they finally act, well, let's just say, the results can be pretty spectacular. So if you enjoyed this story, take a second and hit that subscribe button. Because there are plenty more stories like this coming your way. And trust me, the next one might be even crazier.